Part of the writing process is receiving feedback on your writing. You've written it, you've gone through and revised and edited it yourself. Now it's time to get a second pair of eyes on it. The reason for this is that when we write, we're directing our writing towards an audience that doesn't live in our heads. So when we're writing, we live in that world. We live with the knowledge of all of the research that we've done for a persuasive piece, perhaps, or the world that we've created for a fiction piece. We know all of the background. We know everything that's going on. We know our characters' motivations. We know the support for the arguments that we're making. But our audience, whether that's a particular age group or a group with a certain level of familiarity with the topic about which we're writing, our audience doesn't live in our heads. So because we have all this background knowledge, we have a tendency to miss certain things in our writing, maybe logical problems, maybe descriptive problems. So having a peer reviewer, which is also often called a beta reader, can help you fix some of those problems before your audience has to deal with them. Ideally, you've got a peer reviewer who's a better writer than you, but that's not actually a requirement. You need someone who hasn't lived in the world the way you have. That second pair of eyes will make things easier and bring up some points that you might have missed. This is why we have developed our writing communities. Our peer review process is going to use those writing communities to get feedback from other people, probably other people who are part of your audience. When you're starting the peer feedback process, you need to arrange with your writing community and your peer reviewers how this process is going to work. How detailed do you want the feedback? How do you want it shared? Do you want it just to be like blunt, tell me straight, or do you need it to be couched in more kind and gentle terms? For our class, you need to receive feedback from at least 2 people in your writing community, and you need to give feedback to at least 2 people in your writing community. More is excellent, but you have to have 2 and you have to give to 2. Make sure your writing piece is in a Word document, since that's what's integrated with Teams, which is what we're going to be using for our peer feedback process. If it's not, copy and paste it so that it is in a Word document. You have access to it through our school. Attach that Word document to a comment in your writing community chat on Teams. And then in the comment, give the title of your piece and identify what you want your reviewers to focus on as they read it. Where do you think you most need their help? What are you most curious about? Don't give them too many things, at most 3. If you want feedback on more things than that, maybe ask another reviewer. But that gives your reviewer something to focus on, something to specifically look for that would be useful to you as the writer. So here's how you use Teams and you attach your document
For your
and use
peer
it for
review
peer review.
process, you are going to need to share your writing with your group. So open up the chat and find the one or enter in your writing group name here in the to field, and then go down to the message. You're going to attach it by using this paper clip here that says attach. Click that and upload it from wherever it happens to be. Make sure that it's in a Word document so that people will be able to give comments for you. And then for the message, type the title that you have for it and let your peer reviewers know what you would like them to look at. It shouldn't be spelling or grammar. That's proofreading, not reviewing. It should be something to doing with the content, although you may ask them to note down any errors that they notice in terms of the mechanics as well. When you're done, click send. and it shows up here in the chat. As the peer reviewer, I'm going to read what the author is looking for, what requests they have for me as a peer reviewer. So plot, characterization, and hook. So those are the three things that I'm going to be spending the most time looking at. And then I go into the document. I want to make sure that I am making changes through comments rather than through actually changing the document. So I'm going to use this comments button here. As I read through, if I want to comment on, for example, the hook, I highlight the part that I want to comment on, I click comments and add new, and then I would type whatever my comment is. When I've got my comment, I click post comment, and now when my author goes back to read this, they'll see my comment. When you're done, you click close, and you come back to the chat. If I go in again now, I can see that there was a comment. When I hover over it, I can see what the comment was for, and then if I click it, I can read the comment, and then I can reply to what the peer reviewer said. If it's a question, I can respond to it, or I can make a note about any changes that I have made. When you've gone through the document, whatever piece of writing that they shared, and done your feedback through there, making notes about specific aspects, in a reply to the message, let the person know what they've done well and what one or two things are that they could improve on overall when you look at the whole piece.
Some examples for a fiction piece would be like the hook, the characterization, plot flow, the believability of the actions or the events in the context of the story, of course, the ending, the dialogue, descriptive details, things like that. Some nonfiction examples, again, hook, the introduction or thesis, supporting arguments, how the essay is organized and the transitions that are used, conclusion or release, the evidence that is provided, how persuasive it is, and the level of detail. These are just some examples for these two types. For providing peer feedback, there are a few steps you should go through. Start by reading through the piece completely, not making any comments or anything like that. Just read through the whole thing so that you have an understanding of the whole story or the whole argument. Then go back and reread. Note down what worked well in the piece, the things that you enjoyed or found interesting, and where you as a reader would like to see changes, things that were confusing or maybe missing. Use the comment feature in Word for that. Be specific. Good job or I don't understand is not helpful. As a reader, it may feel, or as a writer, it may feel great to see good job, but that's not going to help me make my writing better either now or in the future, because good job doesn't tell me what I did well. So instead, be specific. For example, the decision your character makes here totally fits her personality. Or the evidence you're sharing here seems to contradict your argument to suggest that it isn't correct. Consider either changing it to be clearer or removing it entirely. In your peer feedback, make sure to address the areas on which the author asked you to focus. In terms of mechanics, if the author's not using paragraphs or not capitalizing the beginnings of sentences or is using text speak, note that down for them. But other than that, only edit if they have specifically requested you to and you don't mind taking the time to do that. Proofreading is quite time consuming. When you're finished, leave the author a comment using the @ and then their name function of Teams so that they are sure to see it. That in the comment identified 3 to 4 things they did well overall in the piece with specific details. and 1 to 2 things that would most improve the piece if they changed them at this particular moment. As the author, as the writer, when you receive the peer feedback, you need to make the decision whether to apply it or not. Keep in mind that your peer reviewer is looking at your work from a different point of view. They're looking at it from the point of view of a reader. You can't look at it that way because you wrote it. You lived in that piece. So read through the feedback, decide whether to apply it and how to apply it. Make whatever changes you think are useful, and then save your changes as draft 3. Remember, draft 1 was the original, then you self-revised and edited, and that was draft 2. If you have time, request feedback from a 3rd or 4th peer reviewer. The more people that look at this, the better writing you will have in the end. When you're done, you've looked it through, you've made your changes, you've looked through it again, revised and edited again, just to make sure that you haven't missed anything, and this is the best writing that you can do at this moment, then you need to publish it. And publishing for our class is sharing it with an authentic audience, which means not just handing it in to me. You can copy and paste it to your blog and publish it there. You can search out contests or publishers who are currently accepting submissions and make sure that they're ones that work with the type of writing you do. If the publisher mostly works with fantasy and you send them science fiction, that's not a good fit. One note about that, choose contests that don't charge a huge fee. Or at least where the entry fee is small if you choose to do that. There's a lot of scams out there. If you're not sure, come and see me. You can also look at the list on the Publishing Your Writing page in OneNote, which is in the creative writing section of the content library. There are several options there for various forms of writing, but these have been collected over time, so the submission dates may not coincide with what you are working on or when you're working on it. And some of them may no longer be open for submissions at all.